Recap of Invincible Season 1, Episode 1, It's About Time, spoilers ahead. General setting and key characters. Invincible is an adult animated superhero series adapted from the comic by Robert Kirkman. The story centers on Mark Grayson, a teenager whose father is the world's greatest superhero, Nolan Grayson, Omni-Man, of Viltruid. Mark is human-born but expects to inherit superpowers. Other important characters in Episode 1. Mark's mother Debbie Grayson, the Guardians of the Globe team of Earth's top heroes, Art Rosenbaum, a tailor, suit maker, the Mer Twins, villain scientific clone duo, and minor antagonists background characters. Episode flow and key events. Opening action at the White House. The episode opens with the Mer Twins launching an attack at the White House, intent on killing the president. The Guardians of the Globe, including Omni-Man, respond. The superheroes rescue civilians, evacuate, and fight off the Mer Twins. Omni-Man aids in saving the day. After the battle, we see Omni-Man's public standing as a hero. Mark, school life and bullying. We shift to Mark's normal life. He's a high school student, trying to balance school, social life, and waiting impatiently for his powers to manifest. At school, Mark defends his classmate Amber Bennett from bully Todd. He's showing he cares, even before powers. Later, Todd aggressively beats Mark. Mark responds by asking Todd to punch him repeatedly. Todd hits him, but Mark remains unharmed, showing his invulnerability. The crowd, students, reacts with shock. Powers, training and conflict with father. Mark's powers manifest fully during a shift at a fast food, trash disposal job. Trash is flung into orbit accidentally, revealing his super strength, flight potential. Mark discusses his fears with his parents. His father, Nolan, reveals more about his Viltruid heritage, his mission on Earth, and that Mark will eventually develop powers too. Nolan begins training Mark. First flight lessons, then combat training. He pushes Mark hard, including punching him in the chest to test resilience, as a harsh lesson that being a hero is not just strength but endurance. After a hard landing, Mark crashes, falls. Nolan emphasizes the seriousness of having powers. It's not a joke, and Mark must be prepared for danger. Creation of the super suit and taking the name. Nolan brings Mark to Art Rosenbaum, the tailor costume designer who works for superheroes. Art helps design a proper hero suit for Mark. Mark has a naming moment. He chooses the name, Invincible, for himself, aligning with his ambitions and father's legacy. He goes out in the new suit for a test run, hero debut. He detects, responds to a nearby threat, a villain, kill cannon or a bank robbery situation, and confronts them, trying out his powers in action. Ultimate twist and climax. The Guardians, Massacre. After the personal origin drama, the episode closes with a shocking twist. The Guardians of the Globe respond to a distress call, assemble at their headquarters, and are attacked. Omni-Man, Nolan turns on them, slaughtering them one by one in brutal fashion. He kills Red Rush, Darkwing, Green Ghost, and others with graphic violence, crushing skulls, dismemberment. The mass murder is sudden and shocking. The shock is magnified because it subverts the typical superhero origin. The hero's father is revealed as a monstrous figure. The episode ends on that violent and silent moment. Themes, tone and impact. The episode starts with classic superhero tropes, heroic action, origin tale, father-son dynamic, but ends with a dark twist that immediately reshapes the moral stakes. The contrast between Mark's idealism and Nolan's ruthless betrayal sets up core tensions, legacy, identity, trust, and the question of whether power corrupts. The graphic violence and sudden reversal shock the viewer. It signals that this is not a light-hearted animated show, but one with stakes, moral ambiguity, and darkness. Mark's vulnerabilities, his desire to live up to his father, his teenage friendships, his anxiety about responsibility, are grounded in a human emotional core, which makes the betrayal by his father all the more devastating. Recap of Invincible Season 1, Episode 2, Here Goes Nothing, spoilers ahead. Invincible S1E2, Here Goes Nothing, recap and key moments. Fallout of the Guardians, Massacre and Nolan's condition. The episode opens in the morning following the massacre of the Guardians of the Globe. Soldiers from the Global Defense Agency (GDA) arrive to recover the bodies and remove evidence. Omni-Man, Nolan, is found alive but gravely wounded, while all the Guardians lie dead around him. Mark and Debbie, his mother, are brought to the GDA where Cecil Stedman, the GDA director, meets them. Cecil informs them that the Guardians have all been killed, and they do not yet know who is responsible. Debbie, distraught, demands access to Nolan. She insists on staying by his side and rejects being displaced by government officials. Alien invasion. The Flaxans arrive. With the world now vulnerable, an interdimensional invasion begins. Armies of aliens called the Flaxans pour in through a portal and attack the city. Civilians are caught in the crossfire. Mark, wearing his new hero suit as Invincible, joins the fight. He intervenes to stop a tank's fire, and when an elderly woman is threatened, he rescues her, but the attempt is traumatic and he struggles under enemy fire. At one point, Mark, Adam Eve, and Robot become trapped by the aliens. As Eve is about to die, Mark finds strength and saves her. The team fights back too. Members such as Rexplode, Duplicate, and Robot assist in pushing back the Flaxans. The aliens, however, start unexpectedly aging and withering in place, forcing their retreat. This is later explained as a time dilation effect. In their dimension, time moves faster. Mark's emotional struggle and recognition of Eve. After the battle, Mark returns to the hospital with the wounded civilian. To his shock and sorrow, he learns the woman he tried to save has died. This death hits Mark hard and reminds him of how difficult being a hero truly is. Mark sees his father awake, though still weak. Nolan greets him, but Mark's relief is mixed with anger. He criticizes that Nolan often dismisses civilian suffering as part of the job. Nolan urges strength, saying that not everyone can be saved. At school, Mark is still shaken. He sees Eve Wilkins, Adam Eve, in her civilian identity, and thanks her for saving him. Eve admits her double life is hard to juggle. She invites Mark to meet the team. Mark joins the team's headquarters. He meets Rex, Duplicate, Robot, etc. They reveal the situation. The Flaxans are smart, their tech resists conventional attacks. They suspect the wristbands, devices worn by the aliens, help them resist aging or temporal effects. Alan the alien and expanded threats. While Nolan is recuperating, Alan the alien appears. Initially he engages Mark in battle, but it becomes clear he is not a straightforward enemy. He is an evaluation officer from a coalition of planets, assessing whether Earth has protectors. Mark and Alan come to an understanding. Alan's presence formalizes Earth's entry into a larger interstellar order. Not all things are what they seemed. Themes and notes from Episode 2. Responsibility and loss. Mark learns the hard way that violence has real consequences. He cannot save everyone. The death of the civilian haunts him. Emerging hero versus legacy. With Nolan incapacitated, Mark must step up. His efforts are unpolished and emotionally raw. World expansion. We see the Global Defense Agency, the team, alien politics, Alan, and supernatural investigation, Damien Darkblood, coming into play. Betrayal and mystery. The show continues to build suspicion around Nolan, Omni-Man. The massacre of the Guardians raises immediate questions. Was there betrayal or hidden motive? Damien Darkblood's supernatural investigations deepen that mystery. Recap of Invincible Season 1, Episode 3, Who You Calling Ugly? Spoilers ahead. Invincible S1E3, Who You Calling Ugly? Recap and key moments. Funeral and public mourning. The episode opens with a public funeral memorial for the Guardians of the Globe, who were all killed in the preceding episode. Omni-Man Nolan gives a stirring speech, promising Earth new protectors and reassuring people that he will defend them going forward. Beneath the public facade, Nolan also leads a private ceremony for the families, burying the bodies away from public view to prevent souvenir hunting. Damien Darkblood shows up at the ceremony, and Nolan openly criticizes him for attending. Darkblood presses Nolan about what he knows regarding the massacre, implying suspicion that Nolan may be hiding something. Robot and the new Guardians. Cecil Stedman approaches Robot and offers him leadership over a new Guardians of the Globe team. Robot accepts the role, and debates begin over who the new members should be. Meanwhile, back at the Grayson household, Nolan tells Mark that he must learn to separate his hero life from his family life. Nolan tries to appear nonchalant about the deaths, calling the fallen Guardians his co-workers, rather than close friends, which upsets Debbie. Unknown to the family, their home is bugged under surveillance by GDA or Cecil's team. Nolan senses the intrusion but outwardly maintains composure. Mark, Amber and the study date interrupted romance. Mark tries to move forward with normal life. He invites Amber over for a study date. Amber accepts. However, their meeting is abruptly interrupted when Cecil calls Mark with an urgent mission. Doc Seismic is attacking Mount Rushmore with destructive powers. Mark must drop the date to respond. Amber is left alone, upset and confused by Mark's sudden disappearance. Meanwhile, Eve sees Mark and Amber together later, which adds complexity to the interpersonal tensions. Teen-team drama and romantic conflict. The teen-team's dynamics further unravel. Eve catches Rex Splode cheating on her with Duplicate and/or one of her clones. She confronts them, breaks off the relationship, and leaves the team tryouts in anger. Robot oversees the tryouts for the new Guardians. He pushes prospective heroes through trials. Eve refuses to join the new team alongside Rex and Duplicate. In a dramatic moment, Monster Girl, a candidate, is insulted by Rex, mocking her appearance. In response, she transforms, grows in size, and fights Rex, beating him badly. Mark Invincible intervenes, landing a punch that forces her to revert to human form. Action. Doc Seismic in battle. Mark and Eve respond to the Doc Seismic threat at Mount Rushmore. Seismic uses earthquake gauntlets, bracelets, to generate shockwaves, tremors, and crumbling earth. They work together to save civilians, stop Seismic's attacks, and neutralize the threat. Seismic ultimately falls into a chasm or crack due to terrain instability or his own device's malfunction. The victory is bittersweet. Mark arrives home late, apologizes to Amber, but she is understandably frustrated. She confronts him about putting hero work over personal commitments. Mer Twins' liberation and Robot's conspiracy. Meanwhile, the Mer Twins, imprisoned in the GDA high-security cell, are freed. The escape is orchestrated by an unseen figure, later implied to be Robot. The original twin betrays his clone, sacrificing him to survive, declaring he'll just create another copy later. Robot is revealed, or heavily implied, to have aided the twins' escape by tampering with security opening door controls. This underscores Robot's more complex, morally ambiguous role. Darkblood and suspicion. Damian Darkblood meets with Debbie and hints that something is off about Nolan. He suggests Nolan may have more knowledge of the Guardians' deaths than he's letting on. Debbie is uneasy. At the end, Nolan senses Darkblood's presence. Darkblood leaves without revealing everything. Debbie is left unsure and suspicious of Nolan's secrecy. Recap of Invincible Season 1, Episode 4, Neil Armstrong, Eat Your Heart Out, in English, with spoilers. Invincible S1E4, Neil Armstrong, Eat Your Heart Out, Recap and Themes. Opening in Mummy Resurrection. The episode opens at an excavation site in a desert, where workers break open a tomb. A man named Saeed enters the tomb and resurrects Kahor, an ancient figure, but the doorway slams shut behind him, trapping him inside. This supernatural prologue sets up a mystical, ancient threat background that will intersect later with the rising superhero alien plotlines. Mark and Nolan. Training, Heritage and Earth vs. Viltruid Ideals. Mark continues his superhero training under his father Omni-Man, Nolan. They fly across deserts, over continents, and eventually head toward Mount Everest. Nolan emphasizes that being a Viltruid, his alien lineage, demands sacrifice, endurance, and harsh trials. As part of the challenge, Nolan and Mark race. The one who arrives last has to wash dishes for a week. Nolan wins, reinforcing the gap in their experience. During their flight near the ground, Mark flies too low and stirs up a sandstorm, which Nolan chastises him for. Nolan says that Mark should push himself, control his powers, and not make careless mistakes. Debbie, Olga and growing suspicion. Back on Earth, Debbie, Mark's mother, meets with Olga, the widow of Red Rush, a Guardian killed in the Massacre. Olga believes the government and GDA know the truth about her husband's death but conceal it. She plans to move back to Russia and asks Debbie to help sell her house. Olga asks Debbie bluntly, "Did Red Rush ever lie to you?" She responds that all heroes lie. This moment shakes Debbie's faith and increases her suspicion about Nolan's behavior. Later, Debbie surfs the web in private, searching for Damien Darkblood, the demon detective, and his claims regarding Nolan and the Guardians' murders. She hastily closes the windows when Mark and Nolan enter home. Mark and Amber. First date and secret mission. Mark arranges a date with Amber. He walks with her through town, tries to be charming but awkwardly slips by referencing Mount Everest, which he and Nolan visited, in a way that almost reveals more than he intends. As their date continues, Cecil Stedman, GDA director, teleports into the Grayson home late at night and insists that Norton, Omni-Man, escort a crew of astronauts to Mars. The official reason: Earth needs a public win after the Guardians' massacre. Nolan refuses, insisting Earth needs him present. Mark, overhearing this, volunteers to go in Nolan's stead. This is a big moment, as it signifies Mark stepping into higher responsibility and trust from Cecil. Mars mission and the Martian threat. Mark secretly boards the Mars expedition ship, hiding from the astronauts. Once on Mars, he explores quietly from a distance, taking in the alien terrain. The astronauts disappear. Mark investigates and encounters sequids, parasitic alien organisms. He fights off or evades them, discovering that Martians live underground and are in conflict with the alien parasites. He helps rescue the astronauts and return to the ship. However, one astronaut may be infected by the sequids, raising the stakes for Earth's safety. Back on Earth, Nolan, Debbie and romantic reconnection. While Mark is away, Nolan and Debbie travel in Europe, Rome. They revisit their first vacation together, trying to reconnect and patch over the emotional distance between them. Debbie confronts Nolan about trust, secrets, and the strange behavior she senses. During their walk, a dragon attacks the city or building, ripping open the roof. Nolan casually observes but doesn't immediately intervene, leaving Debbie unsettled. The dragon threat underscores the constant danger they live with. Nolan tries to reassure Debbie. He tells her that GDA believes he is cleared of wrong, but she reveals she's uneasy about his past and that she is being truthful. He urges her trust, but tension lingers. Robot, Maulers and hidden plots. Meanwhile, Robot and the new Guardians of the Globe take residence in their revamped headquarters. The place is cleaned, except for one huge blood stain deliberately left by Cecil, as a symbol or provocation. Robot continues his secret machinations. He takes a blood sample from Rex Splode in private. The Mer Twins are building a lab cloning facility. The surviving twin is shown constructing a new version of himself. Robot's surveillance interference in their operations is implied. At the episode's close, Robot opens a containment tube. Inside is a partially formed being embryo. He speaks quietly. Finally, Phase 1 begins. This reveals his larger plan and deepens the mystery of his motives. Ending and foreshadowing. On Mars, Mark and the astronauts return to Earth. Mark is unsure whether they brought something back, especially with the potential infected astronaut. Back home, Debbie closes a closet door. In the darkness, Damien Darkblood's growl is heard, implying his lingering presence and that he left something behind. The stage is set. Nolan's secrets deepen, Mark's hero journey escalates, and Robot's hidden schemes threaten to unravel multiple lines. The Phase 1 reveal signals that Robot's plan is now in motion. Recap of Invincible Season 1, Episode 5, That Actually Hurt, spoilers ahead. Invincible S1E5, That Actually Hurt, recap and key moments. Opening and dual priorities. The episode begins with Invincible, Mark Grayson, intervening to stop a villain called Kill Cannon. In doing so, he arrives 20 minutes late to meet Amber, angering her and underscoring the conflict between his hero duties and personal life. Meanwhile, a vigilante named Titan is introduced. He has the ability to turn his skin to stone and regenerate whatever is blasted off. Titan is shown confronting criminals working under Machine Head, a crime lord. Titan is shown as a morally conflicted figure. He is under Machine Head's control due to debts and threats, but wants out. He appeals to Mark, Invincible, to help him break free of Machine Head's grip. Mark's struggles in home life. Mark is juggling school, his relationship with Amber, and the pressures of being a superhero. His repeated lateness strains his relationship with Amber, who feels undervalued. At home, Debbie Grayson becomes more suspicious. She discovers Damien Darkblood's case notes notebook in her husband's closet and reads them, learning about Omni-Man's connection to the Guardians' massacre. Debbie then searches the house and eventually finds the bloodied costume that Omni-Man wore when he slaughtered the Guardians, concrete evidence that confirms her growing doubts. Titan and Machine Head, the Alliance and Betrayal. Titan and Invincible unite to take on Machine Head. Titan presents his reasoning. He accepted Machine Head's control because he needed to protect his family and pay debts. Now he wants to challenge the status quo. They infiltrate Machine Head's penthouse. However, as they attempt to strike, they are ambushed. Machine Head had anticipated the betrayal and recruited supervillains to guard himself. Among the threats that emerge is Battle Beast, a powerful alien warrior. He savagely beats Mark, leaving him severely injured. The new Guardians of the Globe attempt a rescue, but due to lack of coordination and internal discord, they struggle to effectively intervene. The combat culminates with the villains retreating, but not without heavy cost. Mark is left battered, and key Guardian members are incapacitated or injured. In the aftermath, Titan betrays Mark subtly. Although they fought side by side, Titan steps into the power vacuum and claims control over Machine Head's former operations. His loyalties shift, suggesting moral ambiguity in his character. Themes and stakes: heroism versus personal life. Mark's repeated lateness to Amber highlights how being a hero strains his relationships. Trust and betrayal. Titan's arc shows that even allies may harbor hidden agendas. Discovering truth. Debbie's find of the bloodied costume is a critical turning point. She now has proof of Omni-Man's possible culpability. Violence and consequence. The battle with Machine Head's forces and Battle Beast underscores that heroism comes with real physical and emotional cost. Mark is hurt badly, not invulnerable. Recap of Invincible Season 1, Episode 6, You Look Kinda Dead, spoilers ahead. Episode 6, You Look Kinda Dead, recap and key developments. Opening and Doug's transformation. The episode opens with a college student named Doug Cheston stumbling around drunk, attempting to impress some sorority girls, while making boastful claims about his family and his future. As the women walk away, Doug is ambushed. He wakes up strapped in a laboratory, surrounded by half-human, half-cyborg test subjects suspended from the ceiling. His arm becomes mechanical, his vocal cords are surgically removed. The villain behind it is D.A. Sinclair, who claims that human flaws are engineering problems. He tells Doug that he will become different, better. Mark, Amber and recovery. Mark is in surgery, having been hospitalized after the fierce battle with Machine Head in the previous episode. He remains unconscious for 6 days. At the hospital, Monster Girl is on the verge of death from massive internal injuries. Robot intervenes, using knowledge of her physiology to help stabilize her. Black Samson flatlines, and doctors attempt defibrillation. Suddenly, an energy surge occurs. He revives, showing signs of his powers returning. Debbie and Nolan stand in observation behind glass as doctors work. Debbie emotionally blames Nolan for Mark's state. When Mark finally awakens, he learns about the events. Eve reveals she told Amber that Mark was hospitalized after being hit by a bus, to protect him and manage expectations. Campus trip and relationship strains. To give Mark a change of pace and show him alternative future possibilities, he, Amber, and his friend William, Mark's best friend, take a weekend campus visit to Upstate University. William is eager, as he hopes to see Rick Sheridan, a student he is romantically interested in. Rick is also touted as a physically ideal specimen, which draws Sinclair's attention. During a lecture, Sinclair interrupts and argues with a professor, declaring that humans are machines and should be engineered. He mocks traditional biology and asserts that flaws are solvable through technology. Cyborg Attack and identity revealed. Unexpectedly, a Reconnection, a cyborg hybrid creature, bursts into the lecture hall and attacks students. One of the cyborgs appears to be Rick himself, transformed. Will is grabbed by the Reconnection. He throws soda cans at it to distract it, enabling Rick to fight back. Mark, having left Amber earlier, changes into his invincible costume and intervenes. He battles the Reconnection, sustaining heavy damage in the fight. In a critical moment, Mark reveals his identity to Will. Will now knows that Mark is invincible. Mark pleads for secrecy. As the Reconnection looks into a reflection in a fountain, seeing its mechanical, organic mixture, itself impales itself in horror, ending its rampage. Debbie's discovery and Nolan's secrets. Debbie takes Nolan's bloodied superhero costume to Art Rosenbaum, the tailor. He analyzes it and concludes that Nolan struck first in the Guardians Massacre. This confirms what Debbie has long suspected. Nolan, hovering above, watches Art's shop. He is aware of what Debbie and Art are uncovering. Debbie, distraught, confronts Nolan. She shouts at him, calling him out for his deeds. Nolan denies it, claiming she is drunk, retorts that they'll talk later. Debbie storms off. Nolan punches a hole in the wall. Side plots and machinations. Robot retrieves a rare flower, the cerulean cosmos, that is used to heal Monster Girl's damage. He pressures doctors on how to use it. Robot meets with the Mer Twins to check the progress of the cloning genetic experiments he is orchestrating. At the end, two young men are digging up the grave of the Immortal, the former leader of the Guardians. The Mer Twins appear, signaling a plan to resurrect or exploit the Immortal. Themes and takeaways. Identity and disclosure. Will learns Mark's secret. Mark's obligations and identity are ever more tangled. Truth versus denial. Debbie's investigation into Nolan's guilt forces secrets into the open. Nolan's attempts to deny and dismiss hint at guilt and fear. Science versus humanity. Sinclair's philosophy, humans as machines needing engineering, is contrasted with the horror it unleashes, the Reconnection. Healing and resilience. Mark, Monster Girl, Black Samson survive against odds. Robot and others fight to heal bodies, not just fight battles. Power and responsibility. Mark must make hard choices, saving people, protecting his secret, prioritizing relationships, all while under constant threat. Recap of Invincible Season 1, Episode 7, We Need to Talk, in English. Spoilers ahead. We Need to Talk, key events and big reveals. Opening. Debbie confronts Nolan and truth comes out. The episode begins with Debbie Grayson waking up in bed alone. Her husband, Nolan Omni-Man, is absent. She finds his bloody hero costume laid out in the kitchen, a chilling visual. She asks Nolan point blank, why did he kill the Guardians of the Globe? Nolan responds that he kept the costume to help frame Damien Darkblood as a scapegoat, but also admits part of him wanted to be found out. Debbie, furious and heartbroken, demands he get out of her effing house. Nolan complies, but in dramatic fashion, he bursts upward through the ceiling, flying away. As Nolan leaves, GDA operatives, led by Donald Ferguson and others, attempt to enter the Grayson home. Nolan kills them, including Donald. Donald triggers a low-yield nuclear blast as he dies, affecting nearby GDA positions. Debbie is later placed in protective custody at GDA headquarters, forced out of her home. Mark and Amber. Secrets, betrayal, breakup. On a trip back from Upstate University, Mark tries to reconnect with Amber. He finally reveals his identity. He is invincible. Amber surprises him by saying she already suspected it. Despite knowing, Amber is angry, not because of the secret itself, but because Mark continuously lied, vanished, and prioritized heroics over their relationship. She breaks up with him. Devastated, Mark confides in his best friend William. He admits the weight of his obligations, his mistakes, and even reveals that his father Nolan is Omni-Man. The emotional toll is huge. Robot Rudy, Mer Twins in Immortal Revival. Meanwhile, Robot Rudy Connors executes a plan with the Mer Twins. Using Rex Splode's DNA, Robot clones a new body for himself. The original Rudy euthanizes himself with encouragement from his clone, in a bittersweet act of passing on. After betraying the Maulers, Robot uses his robots, the Legion of Drones, to try to subdue them, showing that he no longer aligns with their interests. The Immortal is revived by the Mer Twins. He awakens, enraged, and demands justice. Specifically, he asks, where's Omni-Man? Nolan vs. Kaiju, Reconnection and Omni-Man's show of force. As Nolan is confronted by multiple threats, Cecil Stedman steps in. He orders deployment of Reconnection, the cyborg zombies, and unleashes a kaiju, a giant monster engineered as a distraction attack. Despite the onslaught, Nolan fights through. He and the revived Immortal clash midair. Nolan ultimately bisects Immortal, killing him again in a violent display. The fight is captured on live news helicopters. The world watches. After the battle, Nolan, covered in blood, approaches Mark and says two chilling words, "We need to talk." It's a moment loaded with father-son tension, betrayal, and the breakdown of all illusions. Recap of Invincible Season 1, Episode 8, Where I Really Come From, spoilers ahead. Invincible S1E8, Where I Really Come From, recap and key beats. Opening and revelation of Nolan's guilt. The episode picks up immediately after the climax of Episode 7. The disembodied remains of the immortal drop from the sky, and Mark Grayson, Invincible, stands staring at them. It finally dawns on him: the Guardians of the Globe were killed by his own father, Nolan. Mark, in disbelief, attacks Nolan, assuming his father must be under some external control. Nolan calmly rebuffs that notion and reveals he is acting of his own volition. Nolan proceeds to unmask the truth about the Viltruid Empire. It is not the noble, benevolent civilization he portrayed, but a brutal conqueror species that expanded by slaughter and subjugation. Nolan confesses that his mission was preparing Earth for conquest, and that raising Mark was part of that plan. The offer and Mark's rejection. Nolan tries to persuade Mark to join him, saying that resisting is meaningless, that humans are transient, and that Mark's emotional ties to Debbie, to Earth, will not last in the face of immortality. Mark vehemently rejects the offer. He refuses to betray humanity, despite the power his heritage gives him. Nolan continues to taunt him, showing him mass destruction, villains, cities, humanity, to demonstrate the futility of Mark's choices. In the midst of their confrontation, Nolan kills a fighter pilot Mark had just saved, crushing his skull in his hand, to prove that showing mercy makes no difference in the grand scheme they believe in. Destruction and carnage in Chicago. The father-son fight moves across Chicago. Nolan brutally pulverizes Mark multiple times. At one point, Nolan uses Mark's body like a wrecking ball, sending him crashing through skyscrapers, streets, and crowds, causing massive civilian casualties. One of the most horrific sequences. Nolan forces Mark in front of a subway train, using him to devastate the cars and kill those inside. Mark is forced to witness with horror the carnage caused by his own body. As the battle grows ever more catastrophic, Mark tries to save innocents, but he's overwhelmed. The scale of destruction is massive. Flashback, emotional realization and Nolan's exit. During the confrontation, Nolan recalls a flashback to a Little League baseball game when Mark was young. Debbie encourages Nolan to watch their child, to care about the simple joys. That memory hits Nolan hard. He begins to feel the emotional weight he'd suppressed. At a pivotal moment, Nolan pauses. Mark, battered, bloodied, broken, speaks up: "You, Dad, I'd still have you." Nolan, visibly shaken, flies away from Earth in tears. His departure is painful. He cries in space as Earth recedes beneath him. Aftermath, recovery and setting the stage. Mark is rescued and evacuated by GDA. He spends 2 weeks recovering in the hospital from his physical and emotional ordeal. Debbie undergoes a breakdown. The world is in shock. Cecil Stedman provides a cover story: that Nolan died in an accidental explosion, to hide the truth and protect Mark. The newly formed Guardians of the Globe step in to help with relief efforts in Chicago. The group begins to cohere as a real superhero team. Alan the alien returns. He tells Mark about Earth's significance. That as a Viltruid who defied his own people, he is a cosmic asset. The coalition of planets is forming an army to confront the Viltruid threat. Mark, still reeling, decides he will reclaim the invincible mantle, but not rush into battles again immediately. He wants time, to heal, to understand. The finale also features a montage, showing various other threads. The Sequids continue to overrun human installations on Mars. The Flaxons begin rebuilding and vow vengeance. Doc Seismic is shown commanding magma creatures. The Mer Twins are incarcerated again, plotting their next move. Titan consolidates his criminal power base. Cecil and Sinclair develop a cyborg army. If you liked it, subscribe to my YouTube channel.